future Floridians. This is the All Things Florida podcast for April 2018. If you joined us last month, you probably didn't, because this is the very first podcast from All Things Florida. We're going to go over a new ride that officially opened last month, a new ride that unofficially opened this past weekend, and some theme park expansion news. And along the way, we'll also sprinkle it with some field reports and other goodies along the way. Let's start with a new ride that is unofficially opening. The Fast and the Furious just soft opened over the weekend. Basically went into technical rehearsals on Saturday afternoon, April 14th. It opened for the first time to regular day guests. It had opened to team member previews just before that, a couple days before. And the ride is initially getting some mixed to largely negative reviews. A lot like Kong did back in 2016. Maybe because the ride is a lot like Kong. And just as in Kong, you would board this big truck that would be sending the reinforcements down to the field to help, reinforce things. This time you're actually boarding a party bus. And it's the same type of bus with an audio animatronic driver, a huge bus with neon lights, which the Kong vehicle does not. And you basically navigate through a bunch of screens. And unlike Kong, where you have this nice little exterior area that you drive through most of the time, weather and I guess technical reasons, mechanical reasons notwithstanding, it's not the same thing here. So this ride's a little bit shorter than the Kong ride. And again, a lot of people were complaining that the Kong ride was too short. So, and no, I have not gone on it. I was there the day before the ride went into soft opening, and more on that later. But yes, I mean, everyone knew what this was going to be. First of all, just like Kong, this is taken primarily from a piece of the Universal Studios Hollywood Tram Tour. So most of the ride, and they did film some new footage for this attraction, is actually a lot like what you get in the tram experience, except you're boarding more of a specific, car that can actually simulate stuff. There's winds, fog, and a lot of other things added to this ride to make it a more unique experience, make it seem like you're going faster than you really are. But at the end of the day, it's a ride that, a lot of people complaining about, hey, we don't need more screen rides at Universal, are definitely not going to be happy with this. But for most people, I think we'll get to this later. I think it's going to be a popular attraction for most of the non-regulars. For locals that they want more thrills and just rides that just blow them away, no, this is not going to be it. But it should be a good addition to the park. Definitely more popular than the Disaster ride that it took over. And of course, there's going to be some Beetlejuice fans that say, no, but they took away our Beetlejuice Graveyard Review to make room for this. Why? But yes, I think the ride is ultimately better than the parts it's replacing. We're going to get to that later. But basically, if you think about it, I mean, Universal, they got pretty ho-hum reviews last year when the Jimmy Fallon Tonight Show Race to New York ride opened. A year before that, you had Kong. And, of course, then you had the Hulk, which wasn't really a reopening. It was just sort of a retracking, and then it just reopened with a soundtrack. The soundtrack is actually pretty cool, but obviously it took 11 months that the ride was down, so it wasn't, people weren't there like, jumping for joy that, oh, you gave us the ride, you just took 11 months just to add music. No, they actually had to retrack the whole thing. But you have to go back to Diagon Alley expansion in 2014 to find the last time that Universal had pretty much a widely acclaimed hit as far as expansion goes. Thankfully, Universal has some cool stuff coming for 2019, and hopefully it hits on one or two of the 2 to 3 things that it will be opening next year. But let's talk about these negative reviews for the Fast and the Furious. And again, I have not gone on it, but I don't think I have to review it. I enjoyed Kong, and I enjoyed Kong not so much the first time, but the second, third, and fourth time I rode on it, once I got past the initial disappointment. And I think with Fast and the Furious, I think it's going to be the other way around. I think I'm going to enjoy it the very first time because I know exactly what I'm getting going in, unlike Kong, where I was sort of holding out for a little more. And I think the problem with you getting these bad reviews, first of all, it's mostly like at the Universal Orlando pass holder group on Facebook. Those 60,000 people are great people, but obviously they want another great roller coaster, and you take away the Dragon's Challenge, and you don't give them what they want. But at the end of the day, this is a park that their very motto is ride the movies. So if you're asking, oh, no more screens, no more 3D, no more anything, it's reflecting what's in the movies. And when you have sound stages that are large, but not large enough to make like a massive audio animatronics of some of the things you need to pan out here, you really can't get to some of those ride the experience in an actual situation like that. So you do have a case where people are sort of disappointed that it's a lot like, oh great, I get to go through another screen ride. But people weren't upset when Spider-Man did the same thing. People are not upset at Forbidden Journey, which is basically going through screens. Gringotts, another ride, just a lot of screens, just a coaster through it. People are not upset at those. They only tend to be upset at some screen rides. So go figure. But, of course, the complaint that this is a similar ride system. Well, look, if Universal wanted to build a roller coaster, and if they had the land to build the massive roller coaster, like let's say Mako at SeaWorld, which is really an amazing roller coaster that not many people have been on because not many people are going to SeaWorld Orlando. Those rides cost $25-30 million. Trust me, Comcast and Universal Orlando, Comcast parent company, could pay for that easily. And even though we're not going to get a price tag on how much Kong or now the Fast and the Furious ride costs, I'm pretty sure it costs more than that with everything, all the technology and everything in it, because there's a lot of stuff going into these rides that you can't really experience at a Six Flags or a Cedar Point Park, which are the thrill havens. They're great. Those parks are great. I'm not going to take away anything from that. Cedar Point is my favorite park in the United States if I want to go on coasters, period, end of sentence. But if I want to go experience rides and feel immersed into something, I don't go to Cedar Point for that. And that's why people come to Universal. So obviously if you're local or if you have a Universal Orlando annual pass and you go to the park every other weekend or once a month or once every 2 months, you want these thrills that get exciting every third or fourth time you went. Not a ride where you get used to it and it's more you ride it out of nostalgia. But that's not the way people approach, most common visitors approach Universal Orlando or Disney or anything like that. They're not there every week, every month like us pass holders are. They're coming in to experience it for the first time, maybe the second time. Maybe they've been there 5, 6, 7 years. So to them, it's always fresh and new. So you get a case where the similar ride system, yes. But then again, Spider-Man became Transformers basically more than a decade later, and people weren't complaining. Disney, they turned the Indiana Jones ride over at Disneyland, California, into the same ride system and literally the same track as the dinosaur ride at Disney's Animal Kingdom, which was originally Countdown to Extinction, then it became Dinosaur. People did not complain. Actually, if anything, they complained that they just didn't like the dinosaur ride, but it was too dark initially. They've done some nice updates a few months ago to make it a little brighter. But more than that, people were upset more with the ride rather than the fact that, Disney was just copying Disney. At the end, it doesn't matter. If the ride experience works, and again, this is not, technically, it's not in the same park. I know you're thinking, gee, I'm like a 5-minute train ride or a 5-minute walk from one park to the other. The rides should be different. But, at the end of the day, this is the best way that they can get this ride experience the way they can. People are expecting this to be like some indoor coaster that you'd be riding individual cars in a one-on-one kind of experience. Do not missing the whole capacity issue of these parks. You can't have that kind of experience in a park that entertains, 8, 9, 10 million people a year. So let's measure a ride by thrills, not by the infrequent visitors going for unique experiences, which is what a lot of the locals are doing. They're measuring the rides by the thrills, is it thrilling enough? And sometimes it's too thrilling, like Rip Ride Rockit. Oh no, some people won't go on it because they'll hurt their back or they'll hurt their head or they get dizzy or whatever. So it's hard to please everyone if you go purely for thrills. But when you go for a pure immersive experience, again, you're obviously not pleasing everybody. The first wave of reviews are mostly these pass holders that are very vocal about it. But I'm sure if you stood outside the ride and you asked non-pass holders how they felt, they probably have a better opinion of the ride now, even in technical rehearsals, than us regulars do. So let's move on to a better reviewed new ride that actually did officially open, and that is the Great Lego Race that opened at Legoland on March 23rd. Now, it's basically a virtual reality update to the Project X mouse coaster that's been there from the beginning since Legoland Florida opened. And let's put it this way. If they first announced the Great Lego Race, I think everyone probably freaked out. It's like they're thinking of what happened at SeaWorld Orlando with Kraken. They installed this virtual reality, became Kraken Unleashed. But in reality, first of all, they were very buggy, those headsets. If you were looking one way, so basically you put on the headset and you accidentally look to the right, you hear someone's calling you or something, and that's when it clicks. You'll have to spend your whole ride looking to the right to have a center view of the thing, of the whole virtual reality thing. It's a bit of a mess. And Kraken, more importantly than that, the actual tracking system was not built to have this. It's a platform that really allows only one train to get off and on at a time. It's not like, let's say, Manta that has dual loading stations. So you had a case where trains would take as long as 10 minutes between dispatches. You'd have to get in, people would have to clean the actual Galaxy Gear, the Samsung virtual reality headsets, and then put them in their cases, and then unlock the seats, get people out, come back in, go through the process, adjust everyone's headset. It was a bit of a mess. The good thing here is that Legoland, they've sort of, I guess, cracked the code with this. With the Great Lego Race, it was a very long line. I was there the day after it opened. I was there the afternoon, and the wait was 2.5 hours. So keep in mind that most kids are not going to wait 2.5 hours, and this was the first Saturday that it was open, so it was a little bit crazy at the time. But let's go more specifically to this ride. Unlike SeaWorld, these cars are being dispatched a lot quicker for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's a long platform. It holds many cars over at the Legoland Great Race. So Project X organically was able to handle that. So downstairs, basically, they assemble 8 people or up to 8 people at a time for the next 2 cars. They group them together, and right away they start explaining, sort of like the on-deck circle, explaining this is how you're going to put on the goggles, this is how you're going to adjust it, this is how you adjust the focus, how you adjust the tightness, and this is the little latch that you clip onto the car. So it's not like SeaWorld's Kraken, where you actually had this whole thing that was already built, latched onto there, which takes some press steps, but then everybody has to, rip the Velcro thing off, get out the goggles, put them back in, and all that stuff. So everyone's already well up to speed, and of course, just like Kraken, you don't have to take the goggles on if you don't feel up to virtual reality, or maybe you just don't like it. But I guarantee you, that day when I was there 2.5 hours, I saw just one person refuse the goggles. And of course, this is a kid park, so sometimes you do have to have a certain age to actually be able to wear the goggles. And if you're younger than that, and there's also an age where you can wear it, but one of the parents has to have it off so that they can be monitoring the kids. So there is that aspect of the Great Lego Race that, is not ideal. But once you get on it, it's a quick loading. The cars were being dispatched every 45, maybe 60 seconds at most. So there's a steady flow of cars going out. And people generally walked out pretty excited. Kraken, people walked out a little like, meh. But here the kids were really loving it, even the adults. As someone who's been on, basically, I guess I've been on all 3 virtual reality coasters that are offered in Florida. I'm talking about the one, the original one, which was at Fun Spot in Orlando. Then, of course, Kraken Unleashed, and the Great Lego Race. This is by far the best implementation, in that even though you're in a mouse coaster, and it's not a very thrilling coaster necessarily, all the turns, you're basically in a car race, you as Lego minifigures against other types of Lego minifigures, pirates and cheerleaders and stuff like that. But every turn is calculated. Every turn makes sense. So let's say you have one of the mouse turns. It's a wave coming in, so that's what's veering you off course. Everything is synced perfectly to the actions. And again, on Kraken, it's sort of the same thing. But this is a coaster, because of all these turns, it's just dying for a virtual reality. I think it was a great choice for them to go with this. And also, the virtual reality, it's easy to latch onto the cars. It's a very simple process. It's not really crazy. I don't know how they're disinfecting these or anything. It's all sort of done outside of the purview of guests. But in essence, the ride right from the second day, and I'm sure the first day was just as fine, despite the 2.5 hour wait, was running very efficiently. Now, the irony here, and this is why it's a 2.5 hour wait, at least it was that first Saturday, but it's probably going to be a lot less as later on in the summer. I recommend hitting it first thing in the morning when the park opens, or on a weekday, ideally a weekday when kids are in school, when there aren't too many kids at Legoland, is that Kraken actually has higher capacity, even at its worst, than this Great Lego car race, because Kraken takes 32 passengers at a time, and so it was basically 10 minutes. It came down to 6 to 7 minutes just before they stopped taking the VRs, so they did get more efficient at that. But every 6-7 minutes, sending a car with 32 passengers is pretty much the equivalent of a 4-car passenger going out every 50 seconds. So it still winds up being about 30 some odd people every 6-7 minutes. So it's pretty much the same. The difference here, of course, is that Legoland has a lower capacity. They have fewer guest counts than SeaWorld Orlando does. And also, more importantly, Legoland has a lot of people that are not there to ride coasters. They have a lot of much younger kids that are not tall enough to ride on coasters. They're just there for all the kiddie stuff and all the Lego type activities that are there. And some older people that are just there with kids and really have no interest in riding the coaster. So a lot fewer people are interested in riding any coaster in Legoland than they would at, let's say, SeaWorld Orlando on a typical day. So, again, the 2.5 hour wait was pretty crazy. And just a heads up, Legoland, they have a plan for folks with disabilities to get what they call the Hero Pass. And there's also an $85 Premium Play Pass. Now, the Premium Play Pass, you pay $85, and it's equivalent of Universal Orlando's Universal Express. But just as they were selling them to everybody, they're telling them, just so you know, even though you can just about get onto any ride, for this ride, it's probably going to be about half the wait time. And they said it's about 2-hour wait, so it's going to be like an hour wait. And sure enough, when I got there, it was already a 2.5-hour wait. But that express line, the one for the kids with the Hero Pass, with the Disability Pass, and also the people that bought the Premium Play Pass, it was more like about 40 minutes, which is definitely a lot longer than you'd expect to wait in an Express Pass. But then again, it does shave a surmountable amount of time off that insurmountable time, I guess, for some people. The 2.5 hours are there. So annual pass holders, in some news that they just sent out, they're going to get a one-time, one-ride play pass through June 30th. And it says it's attached to the same circular that's to the same mailing thing that came with announcing the Great Movie Rides. Great Movie Ride. I keep calling it a ride that Disney closed down. So the Great Movie Race. Sorry, the Great Lego Race. And the passes. It's just a one-time use. You pick it up at guest services if you have a Lego annual pass. So you have to have a Legoland annual pass. You line up at guest services, and they'll give you that one pass. And that one pass is good. You can only do it once between now and June 30th, so you can't just go every weekend and do it. It's good up to 6 people in your party. So my thinking is, if it's good for up to 6 people in your party, and you have, let's say, 3 people in your family, and they all have the Legoland pass, you can go 3 different times, and each one of you use that pass and get everyone on it. Or you can just get them all the same day and use it for 3 different attractions, because that one pass is good for up to 6 guests in total, so you can bring 5 people with you. So if you are an annual pass holder, look out for that. Look it up, and definitely go to guest services or the annual pass office, which is not open very long. It's rarely open when I've been there. But if that's open, either one of those places, you can actually pick up this one-time pass. So let's move on to what's happening with future rides. Now, the Fast and the Furious, they've said May 3rd is their official opening date. The day before, they're going to have the VIP thing, which probably a lot of the Fast and Furious stars will be there. But again, that's closed to the public. It's just for media. Maybe you'll catch a glimpse if you happen to be in the park that day. But May 3rd is the day where they will officially open. And again, something that you should know with any soft opening, if you happen to go now, it's never guaranteed. It's open at it could close at any moment. It opened in late afternoon the first day it opened. It was closed a couple hours later. Same thing with Sunday. It opened for a very limited time. Again, these are testing periods. And you should also know, if you have Universal Express because you're probably staying at a hotel or you've bought it, or if you have a Premier Pass that you get in after 4 p.m., Express after 4 p.m., it is not eligible on this ride. Even the Disability Pass that Universal has is not available for this ride, for the simple reason that they can't hold a spot in line for a line that they can't guarantee will be open. So until May 3rd. Once May 3rd, it's officially open, then you can go in. As long as the ride's open, you can go and use Universal Express, get your Disability Pass return time, anything you need to do at that point. But until then, it's just pretty much you're at the whim of however the long line is, it's however long you're going to wait. The next big land to open after that will be Toy Story Land, June 30th, opening day. And then after that, possibly sometime long after that, is Infinity Falls at SeaWorld Orlando, their water rafting ride. And this ride was supposed to open in the summer of 2018, and it probably will. But I guess I should point out that summer stretches all the way to mid-September, almost late September. And it would not surprise me if they miss out most of the peak summer travel season. There's just no way that this ride will be open in early June when schools start letting out. Maybe July, but I'm thinking August. It looks really behind. If you're on Twitter, you can follow BioReconstruct. He has some great aerial shots of all these things going on, and it's really something to look at because this ride was announced a year ago. They shut down the annual pass holder lounge, much to the chagrin of a lot of us pass holders, that you would get free sodas and free charging stations and just a place to relax. They closed it down to make room for this, and they really have not done a lot of work over the past year on this, and it clearly will not be ready at the start of the summer season, at least the start of the summer travel season. Maybe June 21st, June 27th, summer technically opens, but I doubt it. So there's that. And that's pretty much it as far as major stuff happening right now. Obviously, 2019 is going to be much bigger for pretty much, definitely for Universal Orlando, definitely for Disney World with Star Wars coming in. But that's pretty much it for 2018. The big thing this year, of course, is going to be Toy Story Land. June 30th is the opening date, as I just said. I'm guessing, since it's a land, that Disney will let annual pass holders come in for a few days of previews like they did for New Fantasyland when it opened in 2013, 2012, 2013, and when they also did it for Pandora last year, where they blocked off like 2 weeks and they gave pass holders a chance to pick like 3 hour windows to explore in that time. And I think that's going to be, if you are a pass holder, look out for that, because the best times, the weekend times, do sell out pretty quickly. You're going to want to get in on that, because you can get in there. I remember exploring the Pandora stuff with one of these pass holder previews last summer, and it was great. It was like a 10-15 minute wait to Flight of Passage. And you could have just kept going on it again and again. And you sort of said, oh, I'll just go on it when it opens, and realize, oh no, I should have gone on it a lot, especially with the 2, 3, 4 hour waits sometimes. It was just 2 hours this past weekend, if you're curious. So that's it for So the Legoland thing is, the Toy Story Land. It's going to be a pretty cool thing. Obviously, the Slinky Dog coaster is a kiddie coaster. It's a family coaster. It's not going to be some amazing thrill ride. So you can already see the Universal Orlando pass holder group on Facebook. If they got the Slinky Dog coaster, they would be up in arms. Why are we getting this kid stuff? But obviously, this is going more for a family coaster experience. It's going to go through some real big sets, and the track, it's pretty long. It's a pretty long ride as far as, you're actually going through a wide area. It's not like Goofy Barnstormer or the Woody Woodpecker coaster or Shamu at Happy Harbor, to compare it to other family coaster type rides at Orlando. So this is really going to be pretty much a long range kid friendly coaster. And the other ride is the Alien Swirling Saucers. And when it first came out, I was all right, this is just like a spinning teacup ride. No, it's sort of like a quasi whip ride with teacups. So you're sort of going in like a figure eight pattern, sort of like Mater's ride that opened at Disney's California Adventure and then closed. So it's. I don't know. It's going to be a cool ride, and there's like a claw aspect to it. There's alien stuff like that. And sure enough, I mean, this is already said that for Tier 1 Fast Pass, it's basically how it stands now. You get to pick between Midway Mania, Toy Story, Midway Toy Story, Midway Mania, Rock and Roller Coaster, Beauty and the Beast, and I believe Indiana Jones. I forget the fourth one right now offhand. But their new first tier will basically be the 3 rides in Toy Story Land, which will be pretty cool if you wanted to ride, let's say, a Rock and Roller Coaster and see Beauty and the Beast, because all those things are going to be down in the regular tier where you can get as many things as you want. But you will only be able to pick one of those. So you can't go and, even if you have 60-day out Fast Pass, you can't just say, okay, I'm going to take a Slinky Dog and Swirling Saucers, and I'm going to take the Toy Story Mania because I got lucky enough to be there right at 7 a.m., 60 days before my hotel reservation, and I was able to get all those. No, it's not going to work that way. You're going to pick one. So, obviously, 30 days in, 30 days out, you're going to still be able to go in and grab probably, if you're a pass holder or you get a regular ticket, your window's 30 days, not 60 days, you should be able to get in and grab the one that you're actually trying to get. The Swirling Saucers should be available. Toy Story Mania may even be available. Everyone's going to get the Slinky Dog coaster. So just like with Pandora, that after the first 60-day window goes, there's no Flight of Passage tickets for the people at the 30-day window as pass holders. There usually is a fairly good chance that you can get the Na'vi River Journey. So that's the consolation prize. In this case, the consolation prize will be the Swirling Saucers and probably Toy Story Mania. And they should be readily available right there at that 30-day mark, I think. You're just going to have to wait in the Slinky Dog coaster to ride it that one time. I'd suggest obviously getting there on an early day. And if you're not staying at the park, if you're not staying at a resort hotel, do not go on a day when it's early entry for those guests, because they'll be there an hour before you and the line will already be long by the time the park opens today, guests. So get there early, half an hour before the park opens, get to wherever the right drops, and then go there. Just don't run over any strollers. Be kind to your fellow guests, and you'll get to ride Slinky Dog early and use your Fast Pass for other stuff. So that's going to be that. And a cool thing also, a pretty cool thing about Toy Story Land, is that you're getting, Woody's Lunchbox. And with Woody's Lunchbox, I mean, it was always said, all right, it's just going to be another restaurant, no big deal. But they just, basically Disney Parks actually put out some pictures recently of the stuff they're going to be serving. Now, we knew that Maybell Cheese was going to be the sponsor, so you sort of said, all right, there's going to be a lot of cheesy stuff involved. And sure enough, yes, Babybel, not Maybell. So sure enough, there's a lot of mini Babybel snack cheese, you get there. And a lot of the stuff is actually very cheesy. So you have some basically you have a Monte Cristo sandwich, not as fried as the one you would get over at Disneyland, but it is a Monte Cristo. The components of a Monte Cristo, barbecue brisket melt. Clearly, there's some tater tots plays a dominant role. They call them potato barrels, obviously, because like barrels and a monkey. I guess it's cooler to call them barrels. But you can have them sort of as like nachos. So it's basically Fritos, tater tots, chili and cheese. So it's sort of like a chili pie with tater tots, I guess. But a lot of cool stuff. Tomato basil soup is on the menu, which hopefully is the same one that they used to have at the now closed restaurant that they used to have right by the Honey I Shrunk the Kids area. They had a really good tomato soup there. And they also have some for desserts. They have some parfaits and stuff. But obviously the real cool thing, the one thing is going to be, it's sort of like this retro Pop-Tart, and it could either be filled with raspberry or with chocolate hazelnut, which is basically Nutella or generic Nutella, because they don't want to mention Nutella by name. And it's the topping, and then the topping it's topped with caramelized bacon. Which may freak out some people. Like, I don't want caramelized bacon on my Pop-Tart. But bacon lovers are obviously not going to complain. And then you'll have basically you have soda floats. So you have a Coke float. And there's going to be an alien sipper cup that you can buy, and you can fill it with anything. Basically with a glowing little claw with a little alien toy in the middle. So a lot of cool food items are going to be there at the lunchbox. And there's also a big breakfast component, because it's obviously Toy Story Land is where people are going to go to in the morning. It makes perfectly sense that they should offer breakfast. And they're going to do some cool stuff. They're doing a s'more French toast breakfast sandwich, which is basically just a chocolate marshmallow and a French toast with graham cracker crumbles on it. And also a smoked turkey egg, like a sandwich, just basically an egg and cheese sandwich. Of course, cheese, because it's Baby Bell. I think that French toast sandwich is about the only thing that doesn't have eggs. No, actually, I think there's a breakfast bowl, which is just scrambled eggs, and those potato barrels that we know are tater tots, and gravy, brisket gravy, because they have a barbecue brisket melt, if I didn't mention that already. But yeah, so they have, but maybe you could probably ask for cheese on that, or maybe there's cheese in there and they just didn't mention it. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of cool stuff opening there. So that's going to be a pretty exciting place to open. Obviously, no match to what we're getting when Star Wars Land opens, but it's going to be pretty cool when it opens. In June 30th, obviously, Disney, they put out these dates that seem so far away, but obviously they'll be opening for soft openings well before that, probably sometime in June, mid to late June. And hopefully they'll have some pass holder previews for those of us who are pass holders and want to get an early ride on that. So that should pretty much do it for what will be the big things opening in 2018. I'm not going to go off to the smaller attractions like that 400-tall sky coaster thing, the Star Chaser, Star Flyer thing that's opening right by the Orlando Eye, but that should also open this year. But let's go to field reports. I guess this is where I actually am out in the wild checking stuff out. Now, I'll start with Grad Bash. Now, Grad Bash is a Universal Orlando event that for 4 nights, started this Friday, April 13th. It's going to go on next Friday, and then the next Friday and Saturday. There's one Saturday involved. They basically close the parks, both parks, at 6 p.m., and then seniors take over, graduating seniors. And I don't mean seniors as in senior citizens. I mean, angst-riddled 17, 18, 16, 20-year-olds. Yes, they're 20-year-olds. They got held back. Coming in and basically taking over the park. And I was a chaperone. I was a chaperone for the very first one for this year, for April 13th. And I was hoping that Fast and the Furious would be open, but sure enough, the fences were down earlier the day before. But they had signs up there saying that, like a little monitor saying that the ride is not opening. That the monitor will actually tell people, so they don't have to just go up all the time and ask people. It's a neat little touch to just have a monitor at the beginning saying that the ride is not open and will not be open today for technical rehearsals. So don't bother the people. Basically, the park, again, 6 p.m., then they clear out. This is sort of just like for Halloween Horror Nights. They close at let's say, 6 p.m. They have to wait for everybody to clear out before they give the go-ahead. And then, again, this time, it was closer to about 7:15, 7:30 when they actually started letting the seniors in. And, again, I was a chaperone. And you don't just say, I want to be a chaperone. You sort of have to become a chaperone. Maybe you have a kid that is graduating and you finagle your way in there and your kid is not embarrassed by you there. But usually it's mostly teachers and teachers or teachers and their spouses. And I've chaperoned on a few trips. My wife is a spouse, so we chaperoned this trip, the April 13th trip. But it wasn't because of her school. It was because of my son's school. That it's a special needs school, so they had their grad bash and they were going up. So they asked a lot of parents to come up there. And what's cool with the chaperone wristband is that first of all, that gets you entrance right away. There was like a special dedicated gate, which helps because if you thought Halloween Horror Nights is slow to get in, imagine putting a bunch of teens through metal detectors. It was, I don't know how long it took them all to get in, but I know they just sent all the chaperones in through a small lane on the right, and they whisked us right into the metal detectors, and we were in right away. And as chaperones, granted, if you're the head chaperone, it's not a cool deal. I mean, you're going to get paid by the school to be like, I guess, the trip moderator and stuff like that. But it is a lot of work. You really can't go and have fun. Most of the head chaperone of the school I was chaperoning with spent his whole time in the lounge, basically just fielding calls from other chaperones, from parents, from kids that have questions and stuff like that. And obviously, you want to avoid the call, the security call, that hey, you have some kids in trouble here. But that call also happens. So. But if you're just a regular chaperone, you sort of have checkpoints that you have to say, all right, we're going to meet here at 9 o'clock, or check with me at 11 or 1 or whatever the case may be. Again, the park's open from 7 p.m.-ish until 2 a.m., so there's a lot of time here. And so what happens here is that you get on the... and you also get dedicated express. So just like Universal Express or Halloween Horror Nights, when you pay for Universal Express, you get access to the express line on the rides. Here you get the same thing as a chaperone. The chaperone wristband gets you in. And what's really cool, at least my experience this past Friday, was that there aren't a lot of chaperones going on the rides. Maybe because they don't like rides, or maybe because they'd rather just relax and wait in the lounge until they see something happen. Because there are a lot of cool other perks. But anytime we'd go on a ride, even like Rip Ride Rocket, where sometimes express line can get pretty long, we pretty much were on within 2 to 3 minutes of that. So it was a pretty cool deal. And you also have some neat perks. Once you're there, you get lounges. And in the case, I mean, it doesn't tell you the lounge officially. I guess it changes night by night. But our night, it was the Halloween, the horror makeup show, over at Universal Studios Florida side, and over at the Islands of Adventure side. Yes, both parks are open, and the walkway that connects the two parks is open for you to get through from one point to the other. Over at the other side, it was over at the Thunder Terrace Falls, the restaurant right by Jurassic Park and Kong. So... they had lounges where you could just relax. They had massage chairs in one of them. You can actually have sodas and water, all free, and light snacks. And we're not talking about anything. We're talking about cookies and potato chips and pretzels. Nothing over the top or anything like that. But still a very nice, cool experience. Fun to be part of a chaperone, and I really would not hesitate to getting the chance to do it again, especially if I'm not so worried about the kids. If I could just chaperone and enjoy all the perks of being a chaperone. So... and another thing, another field report. I actually spent the night at the Royal Pacific Resort, and now I stayed there. I mean, it was the pass holder rate was like half price. It was $200 some for the standard double queen room, and I have always had this like mixed feelings about Royal Pacific Resort. It's the third hotel that Universal opened. It was, they opened Portofino first. A year later, they opened the Hard Rock, and the year after that, they opened Royal Pacific. So it was 99, 2000, 2001. And Royal Pacific was the more inexpensive of the three. And my experiences pretty much matched that. Hard Rock, to me, continues to be my favorite. But Royal Pacific, I went to a lot that first year it opened because they had a $99 introductory rate. Yes, I know you're going to see like, oh my God, I wish I could party like it's 2001 again. But they had a $99 opening price for pass holders, and maybe everybody else, I don't know. So I booked a bunch of nights at that $99 rate early on, and I had some okay experiences, but none as good as I had that one time I stayed at Portofino when it opened, the week it opened, and I also stayed at Hard Rock the week it opened. And I've gone to Hard Rock several times after that. It's my go-to if I have to pick a hotel from all those. But Royal Pacific, it never really felt. It just felt too big. So because the hotel was too big and it's pretty far, at least to the entrance compared to the Hard Rock. The boats did not come any quicker, even though the hotel has more capacity. So the boats were always full. Sometimes you had to wait for a second boat, something that I never really saw experience over at the other two resorts. So there was all those issues that really sort of set me off. And then one night, we were at the pool one night, and we come back, and our basically our bag is gone, and it had our T-shirts and our room keys. So again, thankfully, we did not have like, any car keys or any credit cards or any even money, any there. We had our sandals were on the floor. They didn't touch those. But they took that and they probably figured, all right, someone's going to make out, and they're going to make out like a bandit. They got 4 basically, old cheap shirts, which I guess we lose. My concern at the time was obviously the room key. So it was a very uncomfortable evening where basically once that happened, immediately have security come up to our room. They had to rekey, give us new keys to make sure to lock out. Security asking questions about the process. So it was. And again, this was also, went late into the night because this was at night already. So my kids were younger. My two sons were younger at that time. So it really was an unpleasant experience all around to have to go through all that and to feel violated, even if nothing material was taken. It sort of turned me off to the hotel in general, thinking, how could this happen? At least when asked at the time, is there security cameras? I know, this was our chair, a plastic lounge chair where we put stuff in. They didn't have anything for us. So again, I put all that aside, stayed there because it was the one place that had a great rate here at the last minute when we stayed up there. Stayed on a Friday night and had a great experience. Again, Hard Rock is still my place. It's still if I had to go somewhere, I go to. But we checked in at 2 p.m. and right away the check-in, we of course the nice little, you get the lays coming in. The lady said, no, I'm sorry, we don't have a room yet, but we'll call you at closer to 4 check-in with it. And just within earshot, someone just came in. Someone either a supervisor or someone else said, "No, we got a room." And boom, we had a room right away, so we were able to go in and rest to check in our stuff instead of having to check stuff outside. And again, it's perfectly cool to leave your stuff in the car or to leave it in there. But again, with my fresh memories of the last time I had stayed at the hotel, they stole our stuff. The last thing I wanted to do was leave stuff there exposed, even if it is guarded by them. So it was nice that happened. The beds were comfortable. The baths were super incredible. I love the rain shower and the body shower head, the dual shower heads. It's just a total great experience. And then we came back, it was like 10 o'clock and we wanted to eat. And the Islands dining room, which I do remember having a few good experiences, in our earlier stays, said it would be open to 11. It wasn't. So when it was closed, Jake's American Bar, since the other place, the other Mar-a-Lago's place was closed for refurbishment to become a new concept. The only place that was serving food outside of room service was Jake's. So we did go to Jake's. And again, I wasn't very hungry, but I had the tomato soup with the cheese donut. Yes, cheese donut. They put cheese inside a donut, so maybe Baby Bella, Toy Story Land can get some ideas. But it hit the spot. The soup was decent, but with that little cheese donut to dip in, it was really a pretty great thing, and not a bad value. I think it was like $8 for the soup and the little sandwich donut. So not bad, Royal Pacific. You won me over. I will not hesitate the next time I have to settle for you because it's not settling at all. It's a Universal Hotel. I also went to SeaWorld in late March while I'm here just talking about personal experiences. And Kraken was down. So let's go over a little bit of how I tend to do parks. And again, I have a special needs son, and my wife and I, and we have an older son who's not special needs, but he's moved on. Not moved on in a grim way, just moved on because he's living in New York. He's not in all things Florida, but he comes down every once in a while. So in basically, we tend to hit the parks early, right when they open, because that is when there's not hassles of getting lines. And of course, there's stuff we can get, like the disability passes and all that stuff. If we can avoid getting that, we do by just getting there early. Since my son's not going to want to be in a park for more than 2 or 3 hours, we're done by the time the crowds start getting intolerable. So it works out okay if we get there when the park opens. And that's what we do with SeaWorld. SeaWorld, they open at 9 a.m. more often than not, which means at 8:30 they're already opening the gates. So you can come into the area and you can, sometimes Manta's even open, sometimes not. But at least they let you hang around the little courtyard area until everything is open. And then at 9 a.m., boom, the rides open. Most of the rides. Then at 10 a.m. they open the back of the park. So at 9 a.m. we get there, and I'm there with my son, and he basically wants to go on through it, but he does not like Manta, which is sad because it's the second best coaster in that park. Yes, I'm a Mako fan. I don't mind saying it. I think Mako is the best roller coaster in Florida. I said it. I waited 38 minutes into this podcast to profess my love for Mako. It won't be the last time you hear that. But so Manta is obviously my second favorite coaster, but he does not want to ride it. So we go, and then Kraken is closed, and it was closed for a long time. It was closed by the time we left. It still hadn't opened, and they had just and the Penguin ride, the Antarctica ride, was actually closed. It was a temporary closure. It would open up again, but basically it was like 52, 53 degrees, and the only rides that were open were Manta and Journey to Atlantis. And we did go into Journey to Atlantis, and we had our own boat. Everyone had their own boat because no one wanted to be on a cold, wet ride on a day when it's in the 50s, in the morning in the 50s. So unusual for late March, but that's what it was. So basically, you think, all right, well, a roller coaster is down, and another high volume ride is down. The shows don't start till well after 10, 10-ish. So for that first hour, you're pretty much down to those 4 rides, and 2 of them are down. And one of them is too cold for most people, so it's basically Manta or bust for most people. And they don't open their 10 a.m. ride. So Mako, which again I profess my love to, and the rides over at Shamu Happy Harbor for families with kids, or the Wild Arctic, or any of the other stuff on the other side, all closed. The walkthrough through the Shark Encounter, all these things are all closed until 10. It makes no sense. If you have a ride, a major ride that's down, open up the rest of the park. There's no reason not to do this. It's a pet peeve of mine with SeaWorld, especially even when all the rides are running. Sometimes we're done by 10 a.m. and we just have to wait for the Mako opening. So it is sort of a bit of a bummer when they do that. I get it. You're trying to stagger things so that people, for staffing it's easier, and it's also just you regulate the flow of the people in the park. But come on, SeaWorld. Have a heart when you know that half your attractions are not running. The other ones are just right there, just waiting a little gate drop away. Just drop the gate. Let people in early. I guess another complaint. And it sounds like I'm complaining here. The Magic Kingdom, they had the Easter Bunny in March, and they've had them every year, I guess. But this is the first year that I actually saw them. Let's take a picture of the Easter Bunny, because if you go to like the mall or something, they wanted an arm and a leg to take a picture with an Easter Bunny, and then you have to wait in a long line. And sure enough, we're there, and it's. This was a week before Easter Sunday, but Easter Bunny was there, and sure enough, the Easter Bunny has the short line, maybe the 2 or 3 families waiting to take a picture. So we go there. It's basically he was set up in the courtyard, the little gazebo area, right by the guest services. You come into the park, it's to your left, and it's Mr. Bunny and Mrs. Easter Bunny. So you get a twofer, all right, and it's free if you have an annual pass, or you already have attached to the photo pass, or if you have your own camera, they're not going to charge you to take your own picture. So we went out there and. The pictures were terrible. And not just because of my expression or my son's expression or anything, but it's we went late morning rather, and the shading in that area is to the point where the photographer without flash is not going to get a good picture. So you're basically in the thatched gazebo shade. It's just I don't know. I can't see how they could actually keep it there. I know that the Easter Bunny is wearing a costume. These things get hot. You don't want to be out in the main street area. We're just going to attract too much of a crowd. But come on, at least provide some background lighting. Get your photographers there. Tell them some kind of ideal lighting. Don't just rely on the sun when you're blocking the sun with a gazebo. Please, a trellis. All these things that are there, just blocking the sun intentionally. You need to have lighting if you're going to use a photo spot. And I guess Animal Kingdom. Yes, this is probably a tip that probably comes too late, but again, I was in Animal Kingdom just yesterday, actually, Sunday, the April 15th, and this is something that, as someone that's I've ridden the Pandora rides, I love Pandora, I love the experience there, I love everything there, but I already know that the best way to hit the park, once you've already experienced Pandora, so once you've experienced Flight of Passage, more than anything else, once you've experienced Flight of Passage, you don't want to go there first thing in the morning. If you get there before the rope drop, you have a chance of experiencing it and getting a short line. Navi River Journey is usually a shorter line, a much shorter line early in the morning because everyone's going to the Flight of Passage ride. But if you want to avoid, if you can avoid all that, if you've done it or if you're going to do it later, go skip it. And either go to Everest or go to the safari ride and then just start hitting the park clockwise, because if you do that, you'll get into the safari with Expedition Safari, Kilimanjaro Safari with minimal wait. There may be a little bit of a wait. If you go right to Everest right when the rope drops, you'll be able to ride it 3, 4, 5 times. One time I was there, and there was a guy that had ridden it 10 times in a row by the time I got there, like at 9:30, 9:45. I'm sorry, it was like ride number 8, but he eventually rode it 2 more times later because we rode it again, and he basically was cycling through the single rider line, so yeah, and even the regular line was also going pretty quickly. But you can knock off that and Dinosaur and Primeval World. If you want to knock all that off in the first hour, you can. The safari may take a little while because, first of all, it takes sometimes a lot of people who don't want to go to Pandora do go to the safari. That's their fallback. And then the safari itself is a pretty long ride. So even if you go the ride roped up, you'll be at 9:30, 9:45 hitting the rest of the attractions. You're not going to be done by 10. But if you wanted to do Expedition Everest, Primeval World, and Dinosaur, those 3, which tends to be my son's favorite rides, you're there by 9, you're done by 10. And that's even before you start talking about fast passes. So It's a great way, and of course you don't want to have a fast pass at 9. It's better to have it at 10, unless you're planning to leave the park early to schedule it, because the lines are really minimal at that point. But again, that's the way you got to hit Animal Kingdom if you're okay with missing Pandora. It's probably going to be the same way in June, in the summer, basically in July, when Toy Story Land opens. Everyone's going to be running to Toy Story Land. So for once, Rock and Roller Coaster may actually not have much of a line, even though you're thinking a lot of the teens and young adults and grown-ups that are hitting Rock and Roller Coaster and Tower of Terror, they may have no interest in doing a Toy Story Land. But that may actually be the best time to do it. And obviously places like Star Wars and everything on the other side of the park is usually pretty much a walk-on through the first half hour of the park. It's probably going to be the same way now, even more so now with Toy Story Land opening. So yeah, get to know the flow of a park. And I guess that's it. That is our first podcast, All Things Florida. Wow, 45 minutes. I am sorry. I did not know it would take this long to go over everything. But there are a lot of cool things happening. And I'll be back for the May podcast. And by then, maybe we'll have some more info on Fast and the Furious, how that went, closer stuff on and of course, let's not even drop this yet. Hopefully by the next podcast we have some more information on Universal Orlando expansion. An interesting thing that's happening with Universal Orlando is that Comcast, their parent company, has bought out a bunch of land. Now we've known that they bought about 570 acres right on the other side, south of the Sand Lake Road. They bought this 2 years ago. And it was all about what are they going to do? What are they going to do with this land? Obviously, they're going to build parks and hotels and stuff like that. But one little thing that was missing on this, and this is a neat story, and I'm sorry that I say this to the end, and most of you are not even listening. But they actually, this guy, Stan Thomas, who owned the land, had a private deed restriction, and it was sold to him by Universal Orlando. So sure enough, he actually goes out and this Stan Thomas guy owns the land, and he can't build an amusement park because Universal put this in the contract so that they would not build a theme park at a time when it would basically hurt Universal's business. So they said, all right, we'll sell you this land. We had bought all this land from Lockheed Martin years ago. We had massive expansion plans. This was back when Vivendi owned Universal Orlando. He said, all right, we're not going to use all this land. We're going to sell it. But you can't build anything on it. And so it was basically a private deed restriction. It's perfectly legal more often than not. 9 times out of 10, if not more so, it perfectly holds up that you can actually sell land to someone under a condition that something is honored as far as not building something on it. So he was quiet as Universal started buying their lands. And just when they had bought a lot of land around his land around there, he basically dropped said, look, I have this land deed restriction on this land that you just bought from me that you can't build a theme park on it. It's part of the thing. So sure enough, Universal was buying land that they thought that they would use to be able to turn into theme parks, but because of their own tight ways of restricting it, that would always carry over. And again, it's hard to say how the judge would rule. This was a private deed restriction going from one party to another and then back to another party. But rather than make it a whole drawn-out legal case where Universal would have probably lost, they settled with him. And not only did they settle him, they bought more land. So this was all finalized on Wednesday, on April 11th. They settled, and by the 12th, we were hearing of them buying even more land from Stan. So they own more land now outside, basically south of Sand Lake Road. So it's not adjacent to the property now, but it's a big chunk of land in all different patches. It's not all one big grid like it is at Universal Orlando Resort right now. They own more land that they have not done anything to than the land that they're doing. So yes, they already they transferred the Wet and Wild, and they're going to put 2 hotels on Dockside and Seaside. 2 inns, value priced inns, are going to be opening. They'll be $73 a night is how it's going to start. So it'll be opening. One is going to open in 2019, the other is in 2020. But now everything turns away from that land now over to the big land and what they're going to do, and whether they do that Super Nintendo land there, as many are now saying, or they wait. Now there's really no reason for Universal to wait now. I mean, they're going to have to announce something before 2019 to get some of the, once everyone's like saying, it's SeaWorld, once not SeaWorld, once Disney opens Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, it's going to be game over. So Universal needs to have some kind of momentum thing that's saying, all right, guys, so this is going to happen definitely by next year, at least the announcement, but I expect it to happen a lot sooner, maybe now, once Fast and the Furious opens. Especially if it opens and the general reaction tends to mirror the original audience reaction, where in May it just did, the audiences just aren't feeling it the way that the pass holders aren't. you can be pretty sure Universal's going to want to sweeten that off by saying, oh, guys, by the way, you don't want to necessarily cancel your annual passes, or you don't want to dismiss us completely, because we're going to have this coming in a few years and win people over that way. So I definitely think we're going to see an announcement sooner rather than later on what Universal's going to be doing with this land. There's so much possible. It's going to be a pretty amazing place when you think about it. Universal's going to have at least room for a third park for sure. Possibly even a fourth park. They may not go with 2 parks right away, but there's definitely a park. And of course, all the online rumors has that Nintendo Super Mario Land, Super Nintendo World, is going to open in the new park, with possibility of Nintendo Attractions app opening within Islands Adventure and Universal Studios, sort of like what did with Harry Potter, and it works so well for them to have Diagon in one thing and Hogsmeade in the other. There's the chatter is that Pokemon may open someplace in Kid Zone, and they may get some Link ride, Legend of Zelda ride at Islands Adventure, and then the bigger stuff, the bigger Mario, more ambitious stuff, opening over in the new land. So when it opens, and that won't open for another 4, 5, 6 years. It takes a long time to develop something after it's announced, but it is so cool to see this all happening right now. Universal's not only growing up, but they're getting closer. Instead of falling behind to Disney, which is how many analysts figured would happen once we get to the 2019, 2020, 2021, when Disney has so many cool rides happening on the books to open, then that you're going to have Universal Orlando take a pretty big step here. So we'll see how that all plays out. Obviously, this will not all be official by the time the May podcast comes around. By then, we'll obviously have a clear indication on how people are taking Fast and the Furious. It'll already be open probably, depending on when in May the podcast comes out. But I think it's going to be some interesting times this summer. People have always said this summer is one to just take Orlando off because Toy Story Land is not such a big deal. Fast and the Furious is just a sort of a small, it's a wider adaptation of the Universal Studios Hollywood Tram Ride section of it, along with the Kong technology that's used in the Kong ride over at Islands of Adventure. But and of course, Infinity Falls, when it opens, I think Infinity is like the timeline on when it can open. But it's going to be a pretty interesting year as far as this chess game, this pawn, the chess moves that Disney and Universal are making, and how it plays out to everybody. And SeaWorld, which of course is going through struggles, they just changed their CEOs. We still have a place that have Infinity Falls and Busch Gardens, Tampa. You still have Gwazi Ride just sitting there waiting for something to happen. So maybe we'll get some cool announcements this summer. It may not be this dead summer that everyone's predicting it to be. It's some interesting stuff, so get out there, enjoy stuff, and of course, chaperone a grad bash if you ever get a chance. It is very cool. That's it, all things Florida for April. Moon Pies out.